Hey everybody, it's AJ here with SnowTrax TV, and we're bringing you some new videos on brand new 2021 products. I've had a lot of questions about the new digital gauges from both Polaris and Ski Doo, and so today I thought I'd walk you through a little bit of both of them and tell you maybe what they are, what they aren't, and which one steps out on top. So on these screens, they're very clear and visible. You get all the information that you need right in front of you. You got your gas gauge, you got your engine temp, outdoor temperature, speedometer, you got your RPM, and then over to the right is pretty much the interaction for all of the other stuff. Down on your handlebar switch, you do have the buttons for picking up calls or canceling a call, as well as for turning your volume up and down, which comes up on the screen when you adjust that. So that's helmet control. All that stuff comes up. You also have your play, pause, forwards, or next track or previous track on buttons on the left-hand side panel, as well as a little gear button that gives you technical information for the sled, like the engine temp, as well as the battery voltage. It only seems to do both of those things, so it's a little bit of a waste of a button for just those two things or pieces of information that probably you're not going to be needing all that often, considering you already have your engine temperature on the screen. Now, moving away from that, on the right-hand side, there's another little button for all of your different applications. When we push the application button, it brings us, after a little while, it says application not available. We have to select this, connect our phone. This is the one downside to this application and this screen. We found, this is the second sled we've set it up on, we found that we do have to go in, you have to launch your BRP Connect app, and when your phone times out or you turn the sled off, you have to re-go back in and to your phone, relaunch it, and launch BRP Connect. So that's a little bit frustrating. It doesn't just naturally come up. You have to go through your phone a little bit. And if you're out riding, that could become a little bit bothersome. So something to be aware of. On the screen now that I have my apps up, I do over here have my phone battery. I have my cell signal, and it tells me that it is being charged currently. It gets rid of everything that was over on this side. So now you can select whether you want, speedometer, or you can user select some of the things on the screen here, but your RPM is now inside of this little gauge on this side where it was telling you ambient temperature. So let's go over and check this out. Music, it brings up the music from your phone. On both the Polaris and the Ski Doo gauge, music isn't a huge thing for me. Neither is picking up my cell phone calls. I don't want either of those things when I'm out on the trail. I want to be out there and having fun and not worrying about receiving or taking phone calls from anyone unless it's super important. So not really a big priority for me. Both these gauges offer this. Let's go over to Maps. Click on Maps, and now it brings up Apple Maps. It's okay, but it doesn't give you trail systems. And I believe that at this point right now, BRP doesn't have trail systems for everywhere. There are certain ones that do. We don't have any for our area in Ontario here, so that's a little bit of a deterrent. It'll give you road maps. It shows you all kinds of different things. So let's zoom out a little bit. You can see where we are here in Ontario. It's cool. It's got lakes. It's got the provincial parks, all those types of things, but it doesn't have specific trail maps. So that's something to be aware of. Now, there are other apps I'm sure that you can download to make that work, but this is just plugging in your phone and going without having to do anything except the BRP Go app. It doesn't give you trail maps. That's a concern. The other thing is, this is not touchscreen, so you have to use the jog dial on the left-hand side knee area for everything that you want to do. And if you're trying to zoom around the map, it can become a little bit cumbersome to try to figure this out. Right now, I am actually trying to figure it out, and I'll be honest, it's awkward. It's not the most intuitive system. Reaching down and touching the left jog dial when you're riding, not the most user-friendly system. It's awkward, and it doesn't exactly instill the highest level of confidence when you're riding. So that's something to be aware of. The gauge itself is nice, it's bright, and it gives you adequate information. However, I'm not terribly thrilled with the size of the screen. I think it would have been better had it have filled out this entire space and then some. Would have been more in your face and easier to navigate as well. I think it should be a touch screen, because using a jog dial while you're riding means one hand is coming completely off of the handlebars, and to me that's just not safe. So some things to be considered about this gauge. Now, with that being said, let's move on to the Polaris and check some things out over there. So now we're on to the Polaris 7S display. Let's fire it up. You'll notice right away that it's a much higher resolution display, much larger. It's got loads of information on it. And you're also going to see that there's many ways to interact with this gauge. So right away, I can use touchscreen. I can use the jog dial on the left-hand side of the screen, or I can use my hands on the actual handlebars and the controls up here to be able to scroll through and do different things. This display gives us a lot more information in our face. It's much brighter, it's clearer, and it's larger, which when you're riding on the trail means that you don't have to glance down as long and you don't have to stare or squint for anything that's there. Plus it's giving me more information right here on the main page, but I can scroll through these user-definable left-hand side widgets almost, you'll call them, and you can go through and change those to whatever you want. They're really, really interactive and intuitive. Pretty smart little systems. If I scroll through again, I can bring myself to the GPS maps. One thing you're going to notice is that my phone hasn't been connected to this yet. Now behind the screen, there is a USB plug, so you can plug your phone in to charge it. There's no heated pad here, but there is a massive cavernous storage back in behind, so you can fit all kinds of stuff back here. Great thing is, you don't need your phone connected to this gauge in any way, shape, or form to do anything. The only thing you need a phone connected to cell coverage for is if you're riding with friends who don't have this gauge on their sled. Then they can also join into your group ride and they'll show up on your screen. So other snowmobiles that are using the Polaris app will show up on here. But if you have other friends who have the 7S gauge, they show up on here when you load them in. You don't need cell coverage, so you can be out in the middle of these sticks in whoeversville, and your friends are on there, your maps work, and everything's functioning, GPS, the whole 9 yards. So to me, that's a huge benefit. I don't need a phone. I don't have to take my phone along. It's not a requirement. On the GPS screen, everything is touch friendly, and it does have all of our trail maps. So the cool thing is the blue maps on here, you can see this is B trail coming through. You know, we can move around. It's very fast compared to Polaris's last version of this gauge. This is super quick. Here we go. We got E103. This is super cool. Shows all the lakes, everything else. It also does show the road maps and elevations and whatnot. So this is a great gauge, and it's very quick, very friendly, very bright. It also shows where there's local fuel. So it says there's a Shell station 1.8 miles away from where we are. Great, has all that stuff on there. That's super handy. This is Polaris's own map system, so we don't use our phone for it. So it's not using Apple Maps. It's using a map system that's updated by Polaris. Every once in a while, you may have to do map updates to this. It's pretty easy to do, not all that hard. All kinds of stuff you can do. You can do course up, or you can do, you know, same as your pickup truck. Even when you're in this GPS setting, it's still giving us your fuel, it's giving us your heading, it's giving us the time of day, your speed up in the left-hand corner. Pretty cool. Some of the other things that this gauge does really well is give you all kinds of information. When you push on the Polaris little star here, it brings everything up that you could ever think about. So heated grips, one of the cool things with the Polaris you know, adjustable hot grips now with the smart grips is, sorry I went out of that, is that now I can set it. So let's go in and see. We got low settings for my hot grips. Well, I'm going to change that just because I think that low should be, let's say 88 degrees. And my thumb warmer I want at 86. Medium on my hot grips, I'm gonna go a little bit warmer at 97. And my thumb warmer, I don't like it that hot, so I'm going down to 93 degrees. And then on high, 104, yeah, that's probably good enough, that's max. So you can set these and then forget it. When you go in and you hit your thumb warmer button on the handlebars, it remembers these temperatures, and just like climate control in your pickup truck or in your house, it'll bring the temperatures of the hot grip and thumb grip, or sorry, thumb warmer to those exact temperatures, maintain that temperature, and not run it too hot, likewise not run it too cold. It'll stay at that setting. It's gonna take you a little while to figure out exactly what you like, but it's cool because once you set it, you don't have to change that again, and you know low will stay at one temperature, or high likewise will stay at one temperature. So pretty cool stuff there. Now, go back into the settings. We got all kinds of cool stuff. We can go to the gauges, or sorry, I don't wanna go to gauges, I wanna go to your phone. We talked about that. We can add our phones in here, and we can connect just like the other Ski Doo app. You can get your music on here. Exactly the same thing. It'll play over USB. You can connect via Bluetooth as well. And so you're good to go if you really want your music along with you. We go back in, rides and waypoints. We can add all this stuff in, do different waypoints, set up different group rides, have it all updated in here, and then you can connect your friends so that they can show up on your. One of the neatest things that I've seen thus far with this gauge is the fact that when you're riding with other friends, they will show up as a different colored dot on the screen, and it'll tell you how far away from you they are. It'll tell you what speed they're currently traveling, what direction they're traveling, And those are really important pieces of information. It also tells you their name as you can set it up and select it. But what that does is it gives you information, tells you whether, you know, Joe or Sally that you're riding with is stopped on the side of the trail, or whether they're maintaining speed, maybe they're stuck, maybe they, you know, stopped at a gas station that you didn't stop at, whatever it might be. It shows those people, and it also daisy chains from one sled to the next, so it can continue and expand out and go further. You don't need your cell phone. The only people who need your cell phone, or who need a cell phone with cell service, are those who don't have a Polaris 7S gauge. Back in here, your current ride is that one that we're on. It'll tell you all the different stuff, your elevation change, your distance, you know, how long you've been moving for, how long you've been stopped for. Cool information, interesting stuff. And then when you go right into all of the different settings for the sled, it brings up a picture of your sled, gives you your VIN, engine hours, all that stuff, total mileage on it. Gives you everything you could ever want to know about maintenance and those types of things. You can set up miles per hour, kilometer an hour, Fahrenheit, Celsius, tells you the software, current software update, so that you know whether you need to update it or not. Update on the maps, it'll tell you what maps you're using. All of this really cool stuff. Set up your time zones. The vehicle itself gives you all the information, your fuel type, where you used to have to change you know, the little plug in the left-hand side panel. Don't have to do that anymore. Now you can just go for non-premium ethanol or 91 ethanol. That's interesting. It'll only do it when the sled's on. Anyways, so these are some of the cool stuff that this gauge does. So I'm really excited about this Polaris 7S gauge, and that's because it does so much, and it doesn't need something else. It doesn't have to piggyback off of another piece of technology. You don't have to bring something else along with you, unless of course you want to receive phone calls or play your music. It does all the GPS functionality on its own. It's touchscreen, so if you just need to reach forward with your glove and it's glove friendly, you can do so. There's a jog dial on the side of the screen that's easy to use, and then you also have hand controls right here at your fingertips, so that you don't have to take your hands off of the handlebars to be able to interact with this gauge, which I think is super huge, because if we want information, we want it quick, and we don't want to take our eyes off the trail. So that's something that this gauge does really, really well. On top of that, like I said, you don't need any other technology. It works on its own. It'll work with the group ride. Your friends will show up on here if they have a 7S display. The only people who need a phone when you're riding with this Polaris is somebody who's on an off-brand or on an older Polaris sled that didn't have the 7S gauge, and then they show up on your map as well, and you can see everybody who's riding with you. I understand that a lot of people are really hesitant towards having more technology on their sleds, but let's all be honest, it's not going away. Technology is getting greater and bigger, and we're integrating more of it into our power sports toys. This is one piece that if you try it and you use it, and you don't just hate on it right away, you will realize in the snap of a finger that this is a really cool piece of technology. It has great just usability out on the trail, and especially if you ride with a group of people, it's changing the way that I ride, and truthfully, if I went out on the trails, I really want a 7S display on my Polaris sled. If you like what you've just seen, click the subscribe button and comment below, and make sure you check out all of our great videos on SnowTrax TV's YouTube channel.